And just to give you a recent example, I just closed a transaction in Columbus in August. A district-wide TIF, not city-wide, but a very high-growth area in Columbus, 1,100 parcels, great growth the last 10 years. And there was no city backstop like there is here. But so we had to, build it so the rating agency would give it an investment grade rating. And to get a triple B rating, which is the lowest investment grade rating, we had to show S&P a 150 coverage for the term of the bonds and no growth. And we had an outside advisor that did the TIF projections, and he even said that, well, growth has been great. It was, it wouldn't be prudent to show growth. But again, it's not to say that's wrong, and I'm not saying their projections are wrong. It's just, they could be obviously more accurate than no growth, but I don't know what they are. It just would, if I was on your side, I just would be saying, we don't know, and you should plan for the worst. And the fact is, no growth is not the worst either. So that's, important to keep in mind that sometimes you look at numbers and say, well, that's no growth, that should be good, should be, may not be. So, let's see here. So I guess if there's no questions there, I guess we're going to talk about some reforms.
Yes. What has been proposed and what will be heard later in the meeting will be an amendment to the existing redevelopment commission ordinance that would impose certain extra reforms on the CRC. Already, since the spring, the City Council has been in a position to approve CRC debt, including all types of obligations, including those that are the underlying transactions for these bonds. That would remain in place. What's also being proposed is to bring the employees of the Redevelopment Commission into the city as a city department. The expectation then is that it would be treated like any other city department, go through the budget process, use the Board of Public Works for contracts, have all of the oversight and review and transparency that current city departments have. An amendment that I expect to be offered tonight would also limit the CRC's ability to engage external consultants without council approval. This would just be another way to make sure that the CRC is taking steps that are consistent with the reality of their finances. The money is going to be tight. It just is. And the council will have the ability then to provide the oversight about the hiring of outside consultants. And probably as important as anything is that these reforms provide the transparency for entities that would receive grants from the CRC. There's already a system in place with the State Board of Accounts that even private companies that receive grants, there's a certain amount of oversight by the state. This would make it a commitment by the City of Carmel that if there are any entities out there that receive grants from the CRC, they're subject to the Public Access to Records Act, for example, and are open to public discourse about what they're doing. Ultimately, it makes the CRC accountable to the council and taxpayers for the decisions to take on extra debt going forward. There's not going to be much room, but because it's going to be a difficult financial situation, that's all the more reason for the council to provide the oversight. Yeah, let's
try to get through this and wrap it up. There's a range of options available to the city and the city council. There's been some discussion about whether the proposal is this restructuring plan or nothing else. To some extent, that's a false premise, a false dichotomy. Are there other options? Probably. I know Lauren has discussed those in some of the communications with members of council and with us. None of them are easy. They would involve potentially renegotiation of prior transactions, restructuring payments to eliminate balloon payments and make the payments over a longer period of time, increased pressure to seek out or create new revenue streams available to the CRC. Given the way that they're currently structured in their security, it likely still include relatively high or variable interest rates, which might include some risk. The higher and variable rate borrowing costs leave the CRC more vulnerable to revenue fluctuations. Matching your revenue to your payment streams are difficult if your payments are variable. And concern would be the potential market misperception of Carmel's strength, because the city is obviously still very strong. The risk still remains, say it again, that the special benefit tax would be needed to cover the 2005 PAC bonds. We'd like to do a quick summary. Given all the facts and circumstances, we would conclude that the proposed restructuring may be the best option, but we've been appreciative of the chance to try to help you understand it more fully. The obligations proposed for refinancing, they're not currently backed by the city or the special benefits tax, so we recognize it's not a simple decision to seek the lower interest rates and add the special benefit tax package. And we're trying just to alert the city one more time to the possible risks, irrespective of the decision on whether you choose to restructure the CRC's obligations at this time in the way that's being requested. And lower interest rates, generally speaking, always involve risk. This transaction would create more risk, but that risk may be manageable, and that's the question that's before the Finance Committee and Council.
One other thing, I'm not sure if did Lauren pass out the new no growth assumption? Okay, yeah.
Yes, she has.
All right. Yep.
Okay. I have a question. It's obvious that if there isn't enough TIF, the first thing that might happen is the tax that will devolve upon the taxpayers based on the $80 million Performing Arts Center bond that's already in place. And I remember at the last meeting, Lauren said it was a small tax per 100. Was it $1.12 per month? What was the tax?
The actual tax rate for $1 million levy.
No, you said it was a certain number of amount per month, and then times the for every $100,000 that your house was worth.
$100. So for like $1 million, there's a chart for the
Oh, okay. Well, I have it probably in my other folder for the last meeting.
It was a penny. The tax rate for $1 million levy is 1.5 cents. So when we multiply that by the median priced home, that would equate to about $1.91 a month, okay, as far as additional tax.
No, times 12 times $100,000.
No.
How many?
No, that's after you take it times their tax. That's the amount that the homeowner would pay is $12, about $12 a year, a little bit more than $12 a year.
Right now,
and then we also did that same analysis at $3 million, $5 million, and $7 million. And at $7 million, a $7 million shortfall, or which if you had to levy that amount, would require a 10-cent tax rate. Okay, and then we did that same thing with the different priced homes and so forth. And then that added, for a median priced home, about $13.36 a month.
okay. All right, so if a shortfall occurs in this performing arts bond, what I believe I heard you say was that the city would have the ability to remedy the shortfall. It wouldn't necessarily absolutely trigger that tax. We could put money on the table and pay the deficit amount. Is that correct?
Yes,
certainly.
if you had available funds.
If we had available funds, yeah. We have something here in Carmel called the Rainy Day Fund, and we may be at a very rainy day. So if whether we refinance or not, we have a possible tax event for $80 million. If we refinance, it's for $270 million. But we have the ability to save ourselves if we can come up with the money to remedy the shortfall, which means we would have to, as a community, as a city council, make sure we have money set aside for an eventuality. And because, and I'm going to say this because I'm dealing with other people's money. I'm not a developer risking my own money on the idea that the economy is going to come roaring back. I hope it comes roaring back, but I don't know. None of us knows. We have been surprised over the last 3 years at the state of the economy. But we think, okay, what if it doesn't? What if we limp along for 2 or 3 more years? Could we survive? Maybe we could, refinancing, having enough money in the rainy day fund to slip in a payment if we have to do that. But what if, and I'm sure people planning a loan in 1937 never thought that World War II would take place. We don't know. We're trying to project out to 2037. And I think it's great to be optimistic and upbeat, but I'm not risking my own money. I'm risking the city's money. And I'm concerned even about a small ad valorem special benefits tax, and the reason for that is there was a promise made that wouldn't happen. And I'm going to try to keep that promise as best I can, probably refinancing, and tucking money aside for a potential shortfall. I mean, I think, are you telling me that might be the best thing to do? And I put you on the spot there, didn't I?
Well, certainly, when most anyone structures a tax increment bond issue, they would fund a reserve for just that purpose. So, I forget, is it a year?
It's going to be equal to the maximum annual debt service.
Yeah. So there is a reserve, but
that would not help it. I mean, if you had to draw on the reserve, then you would have to replenish the reserve. So
right.
it would help you not have a sudden default, but you would still end up resorting to replacing that.
Yeah. So it would be good to have your own reserve, and probably of 6 months, or you can do some modeling and so forth in terms of what a very conservative approach might be. But having, a sizable reserve that if it is touched, that you would replenish.
I had never heard that concept before, and I'm glad I heard it because I checked today to find out what we have in our rainy day fund, and the amount is $6.4 million. Not the biggest amount when you think of $270 million, but it's there, and I'm glad it is.
If I can. I've heard twice in the last half hour the 1.06 coverage, which is about an extra $1 million a year, being referred to as used up because that's going to be the budget of the CRC. They can't use that money for that. So it is a reserve. It is above. Even if their budget's $1